like the content we bring you about the heavy metal world, please like, subscribe, and comment to help us grow the channel.
This is Matt with Metal Express Radio. I have with me the one and only Alex Skolnick. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good, Matt. How are you doing?
Great as well. Thank you again for joining me. So, Metal Allegiance, approaching 10 years. Have a big show planned the January 25th in Anaheim. What are your expectations on the upcoming gig?
Man, it's going to be a great time. The Metal Allegiance shows are always a lot of fun. They're a little overwhelming because there are so many participants, but we always have a great show. Every show is different. No two shows have the same lineup, even though there are some recurring players, a recurring cast of characters. And it's going to be a great time. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years, so plenty to celebrate.
This is the first time that Metal Allegiance will be playing since before the worldwide pandemic happened. So how does it feel to just kind of, knock off the dust and get going with Metal Allegiance again?
Well, there actually have been a couple shows. There was one in Long Island that we did. I think that was in 2022. And we did one in Brazil for the Rock in Rio Festival. But that was a scaled down Metal Allegiance. Some shows are scaled down. Some of them have a lot of guests. This one is going to have a lot of guests. It's taking place during the week of the annual NAMM convention. And that's always a good opportunity because you have so many musicians from all over the world visiting that are in town in the same place at the same time. So it's true that we haven't done a show like this since before the pandemic. But we have had a couple scaled down Metal Allegiance shows.
Now, what do you see the differences as between a scaled down show versus kind of like going all out? Is it like the show coming up, that's when you're going to be bringing out more special guests versus like the scaled down show is kind of just the lineup you have going out with like you, Portnoy, and Ellefson?
Yeah, well, the last time we did a scaled down show, the one in Rock in Rio, it was me, Portnoy. We had a substitute on bass because both Mark Mengy and Dave Ellefson weren't available. And we just had ourselves, Phil Demmel on guitar, and a couple singers. And it was pretty much the same band the whole time. The musicians never changed. The singers swapped a couple times. And that's how the scaled down shows usually are. It's the same band, but singers trading off every couple songs or so. When we do the big events like NAMM or the times we've done album release, then it's a whole other affair. That means we have somebody extra for every instrument. So in this case, we've got several guitar players. Gary Holt is going to be part of it. It's been a while since he's been with us because his schedule is so crazy. So it'll be great to have him back. Andreas from Sepultura will be there. So and more. There's some people that have never played with us before, such as Doc Hoyle from Bad Wolves. That'll be jumping in on guitar. There's extra bass players, Hare from Nervosa, for example. There's extra drummers. Portnoy will be trading off with Ron from Mastodon, and there's also some surprise guests that are going to show up.
How did it come about bringing guys like Doc Hoyle on for the first time?
Mark Mengy really had a lot to do with that. Mark's the founder of Metal Allegiance, and I can't really speak for him, but I believe he felt it was time to bring some new blood into the thing. And we've had the same basic lineup for a long time, whether it's the extended shows or the regular shows, and it's worked out great. But it was just time to have some players that we haven't had before and players that can bring in a different audience than we used to have.
Do you see Metal Allegiance playing any more shows after this, or?
We hope to. I know a couple possible dates have been brought up. It's tough scheduling-wise. I've got a very busy year coming up, especially with Testament, but also multiple instrumental projects. So Mike Portnoy is back in Dream Theater, so he's pretty busy for the foreseeable future. But we will try to make it happen eventually, I'm sure.
And obviously, during your shows, you play some of the songs that you guys have written together, but you also cover various songs as well. What have been some of your favorite songs to play live, whether it be Metal Allegiance songs or songs that you guys cover?
Yeah, Well, I'll start with the Metal Allegiance original songs. There's a song called The Accuser, which has the late Trevor from Black Dahlia Murder on the recording. And that's a fun song to play. It's a great tribute to him, so who's somebody gone too soon, and just a really powerful song. It goes in a lot of different directions, and we've done it with very different singers since then. We've had John Bush sing it, we've had Chuck Billy sing it, and everybody brings their own feel to it. And then there's a tune, speaking of John Bush, called Bound by Silence, and somehow that song just hits really hard, and the audience reacts as if they know it. I mean, by now they know it, or a lot of them know it. But I remember even when we played that song for the first time, there was this response as though it was a familiar song, and even if they were hearing it for the first time. So that's another good one, Bound by Silence. As far as what covers I enjoy playing, I always like the UFO song, Lights Out. I was a big Michael Schenker fan when I was younger. And we haven't done it in a long time, but we used to do Heaven and Hell with Mark Osagueda. He's not going to be available for this show, unfortunately, but he is one of our regular members. That's a lot of fun. Any Sabbath tune is my favorite. We've done entire Sabbath albums, and it's a lot of fun. I would say like Into the Void is one of my favorite songs to play.
Is there any song that you hope to cover with a band that you haven't?
I was just talking about this. Interestingly, we haven't done any Ozzy songs. We've done plenty of Sabbath with Ozzy. We've done the whole first album, the whole Masters of Reality, but we haven't done a proper Ozzy song, I don't think, to my knowledge. So, and Randy Rhoads was a huge influence. So I think, we're going to have to do some Ozzy.
You also spent a short amount of time with playing in the Ozzy Osbourne band, right?
That's true.
Now,
it was very short. But I was told he wanted to keep me, but I've told this story often, so I don't want to go into too much detail. But I was more inspired by Randy Rhoads. I was a huge Randy Rhoads fan. I'd learned his solos, and he'd been planning to go back to music school at some point, get a degree in music. I ended up doing that. I went back to university, got a music degree, largely inspired by him. So Randy Rhoads was my guy, with all due respect to Zakk Wylde, who I think is awesome, and there's nobody like him. But Zakk had this huge personality on stage, and I think by the time I was trying out for Ozzy, Sharon was so used to Zakk and his larger-than-life stage presence and personality, and I was getting messages through the grapevine about poses to do and playing the guitar down at my knees and stuff that really didn't fit. So it didn't last longer than this one gig, but there was a gig I got to do. It was a fun gig, and it was in Nottingham, and Geezer Butler happened to be the bass player at that time. He would leave soon thereafter, but at that time it was fantastic, and it was like playing with half of Black Sabbath.
That's awesome, man. And is there any special guests that you would hope to work with at Metal Allegiance that you haven't yet?
Tons, yeah. I mean, we haven't had anybody from Black Sabbath. It'd be great to get any of those guys, Tony, Geezer, Ozzy, Bill. Anybody from Metallica would be great. I know they don't do a lot of outside projects, which I understand. It's very, and it makes sense to be selective, but it would be great. I'm a big fan of Mike Patton and his work with Mr. Bungle and Faith No More and all the side projects. I would love to do something really out with Mike Patton.
Has Metal Allegiance talked about making another album?
We have. We talked about it. It's kind of on holding pattern right now. It depends on schedules and whether all the cards fall into place. But it is definitely a possibility, and I know I would be up for it.
And you did mention work with Testament earlier. Do you see jumping into the studio with Testament as soon as the Metal Allegiance shows are wrapped up?
Yeah. In fact, I have a lot going on this week. So I'm starting it with a Leslie West tribute and that's in Agora Hills, and that's going to include Steve Lukather, Robbie Krieger from The Doors, Orianti, just a wide variety of players. And then I have Metal Allegiance 2 days later. And then I have an instrumental show with Stuart Ham and Chad Wackerman, two of my favorite instrumentalists. And then I'm doing a tour with some other favorite instrumentalists, Percy Jones from Brand X, and this band called Pact, which is a 4-piece. And that starts February 1st. But in between the week of NAMM and these shows with Pact, I'm going to have a few days free. And during those days, I'm flying up to the San Francisco Bay Area and working with Testament on new music. And Eric and I have already met up a few times and worked on some new music. So it's already on the way. It just, we're in this stage where we have to sort through a lot of it and kind of fine tune it and arrange it. But it's off to a great start.
Is there anything that we haven't gone over that you would like to throw in?
I think that's about it. I will also mention that I have a podcast that I started doing during the pandemic, and I'm still doing it. It's called Moods and Modes, and I have conversations with all types of musicians. I just had one with 3 giants of guitar, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, and Eric Johnson, and everybody should listen to that wherever they get their podcast.
My last question I have for you, with 10 years of Metal Allegiance, what have been some of your favorite memories?
Well, the Rock in Rio show that I mentioned earlier was a big memory. I've always wanted to play there. Somehow, Testament's never been there. I'd never been there with any other groups. So that was my first experience doing Rock in Rio. And the crowd was incredible. That was a great memory. We did a show in Japan called the Loud Park Festival. That's also a very good memory. And I think it would be great if we do more international shows. The international shows are really special. Bloodstock in the UK. And of course, the album release shows we've done in the US have been just amazing. Yeah, unbelievable lineups and all the NAMM shows. I mean, they're all pretty great.
That's about all the questions I have for you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking. Hope the best for you and the Metal Allegiance crew coming up on the upcoming show, and hope all is great with the Testament crew, and have a great year.
Appreciate it. You too, Matthew. Thanks.
If you like the content we bring you about the heavy metal world, please like, subscribe, and comment to help us grow the channel.